tonight we have two young people from Stone Elementary. I could have Grove and Jennifer to come up front, please. Tonight we will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Grove Stevens and Ms. Jennifer Lopez.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We appreciate you being here tonight and the work that you do at your school and representing your school. I'm grateful that this school year and thank you very much.
The next item on the agenda is the welcome to the visitors. I want to welcome everyone for being here. Thank you for being with us. And I see we've got Miss Julia Timpson. She's with us tonight.
Yes, sir.
The CCEA representative. Thank you for being here. Do you have anything you want to say tonight?
I am just delighted that we have made it past fall break. We are hurtling toward Thanksgiving, and we've just had a great year so far. I just see so many happy children and happy teachers and happy all employees of Cumberland County Schools. Everybody just seems delighted to be there, and I am so thankful that we've made it this far, and we just continue to press forward.
Thank you. And we have our student representatives.
Yes, we have our CCH representative who has been here for several meetings now. We appreciate her participation. Tonight we have a newcomer, Mr. Philip Garrett. He is representing SMHS tonight. So we're glad to have both of you here. We also have a couple of special recognitions. First of all, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Cedric Hall. Dr. Hall, if you would stand for just a moment and let me sing your praises. Dr. Hall has just received his doctorate in education in educational leadership from the University of the Cumberlands. Absolutely. His dissertation title was Teacher Assessments of School-Wide Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. He serves as a special day teacher at Crab Orchard Elementary, and his administrators, and we all know what an incredible asset he is to that school, and we are most grateful for. We applaud you for your accomplishment, and we appreciate everything that you do for our students. So thank you, Dr. Hall, for being here. Congratulations. Next, I would like to introduce Mr. Brian Canancer. Mr. Canancer, if you would stand for just a moment. Mr. Canancer is our transportation supervisor. He comes to us as a classroom teacher for over 20 years, but as a bus driver for more years than he has been a classroom teacher. So he has a vast experience with both on the bus and outside of the bus. So we welcome Mr. Canancer.
Next item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Sack.
Here.
Ms. Paris.
Here.
Ms. Hale.
Here.
Mr. Brock. Here. Mr. King is not here. Ms. Hamby.
Here.
Ms. Boston. Here. Ms. Cargy.
Here.
And Chairman is here. And while I'm talking about roll call, Mr. King is actually at a required, I want to call it in-service, but it's not, but required training that the state requires, and so this was today and tomorrow was the only days that they had for him to take that, so that's the reason he's not here tonight. Next item is the declaration of conflict. Mr. Patton.
Board members, Tennessee Code Annotated Title 49, Chapter 2, Section 202 defines relative as a spouse, parent, parent-in-law, child, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, grandparent, grandchild, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, nephew, niece, or any person that resides in the same household as you. Now, any of you that have such a relative employed by the school system, if you would please raise your right hand. Let the record reflect Ms. Parrots, Mr. Inman, Mr. Brock, and Ms. Foster. Do each of you hereby certify that the votes that you make tonight will be in the best interest of the Cumberland County school system, regardless of the effect that your vote may have upon your relatives?
I do.
And let the record reflect all affirmative.
All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the September minutes.
So moved.
Mr. Safety with the motion.
Second.
I believe Mr. Brock beat you by just a second. Ms. Hale? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Okay. Ms. Carty with the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, agenda is approved. All right, next item on the agenda is the community comments. And I believe we've got 3 people that have signed up, and we'll start with Mr. David Stout. And Mr. Stout, you know our routine. I guess I need to tell everybody, whenever you come up here, please state your name and your address, and then you'll have, once you get finished with that, then you'll have 3 minutes to address the board.
You bet. My name's David Stout. I live at 47 Bluffview Terrace in Crossville, Tennessee. I'm so happy to be here, too. Again, I always want to thank the board for your service. I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. I want to thank all the people who showed up today. It takes a village to get this done, and the more faces we see, I think the better off we all are. I want to apologize for speaking 3 times in a row as well. That is not my intent. Someone else was supposed to speak tonight, and they asked me to speak on their behalf because they couldn't be here. So I'll qualify that so you don't have to anticipate me speaking every time. One of the things we wanted to speak on was last time I spoke, I kind of challenged the board on what they were going to do different, because I have the review that you gave yourselves, actually your self-assessment in my hand, and I think probably all of you would agree that it was kind of a dismal result, certainly not something you're proud of, but that you would want to repeat. So in the last meeting, I actually asked, what would you do different? Some of the highlights that I thought were really important was the board weighs all decisions in terms of what is best for the students of the school system. 4 out of 9 of you rated yourself below average in that regard. Another one, the board is able to disagree on matters and still maintain an attitude of mutual respect and trust. 5 of 9 rated yourselves below average in that regard. One of the more distressing ones where I think we have real opportunity is the board regularly solicits input from the community when establishing the future vision of the district. 5 of 9 of you rated yourself below average in that regard. So I think without going further into it, I know you're not proud of it, and I know you'd like to see changes made. So when I asked what you would do differently, we had our election. We chose to elect pretty much the same officers, which I'm actually comfortable with. You have a lot of experience. We have a lot of great board members who've served for quite a while, have a lot of experience. What I'm going to suggest is that you prepare an action plan on how you're going to have a better result next time when you have your self-assessment. And I'm going to ask that that be presented at the board meeting in January. I'm certainly not trying to tell the board what to do. I'm making a suggestion on how you might want to approach that. I brought with me, and I'll leave this with Mr. Inman, 2 articles on how to prepare a good action plan. I'm sure you've done it before, but you might find this helpful. And what it says is that everyone has goals, but some seem to accomplish them far more than others. That's because people who accomplish goals at a higher rate than the average person are those who use a systematic, proven method of goal setting and goal attainment. The answer is simple. You need an effective action plan. So I'm going to plead with the board to prepare an action plan that you can present in January and help us all work together to move forward.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Stout. And I will say that we normally have a school board retreat in January, and that's when we would normally take up things like this. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next person is Amanda Curley.
Hello, good evening. My name is Amanda Curley, and I live in the Voluntary community in the 3rd District, where my son attends 2nd grade at Homestead Elementary. I'm here today to speak to you all on the traffic out in the Homestead area, not coming from the 68 side, but coming from the 127 south side. We are currently backed up to a standstill past the Homestead Baptist Church, which is across from the state park. Kids have received tardies due for us sitting there for 15, 20, 25 minutes at a time trying to get into the school. Traffic just does not flow well going out that way through the triangle because of the traffic coming from 68 and exiting the school, so there's not a chance for them to pull out. There has been times where I've tried to get in the emergency lane, some to try to get my son to school on time after sitting there 20 minutes or so. I've go in and talked to the administrators and stuff to let them know what is going on. Because you don't want your kids to get excess tardy due to traffic not being able to get in. There has been times where we have been closer to the school where we try to get in the emergency lane, me and several other parents. And I guess some parents or other vehicles that do not have kids going to the school, they block us in the lane, so we cannot even try to get in the shoulder to get our kids into the school. So this was really the only place we knew where to come to address the issue of the traffic and the tardiness for the kids at Homestead. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So I thank you, first of all, for bringing this up. So do you have any suggestions? I don't live out in that area, so I know just driving out there is always kind of a mess anyway when you're coming out and trying to turn. So did you have any thoughts? As a parent that's there every day?
The pickup situation's bad, but the morning's just as bad, if not worse, because you don't have to worry about tardies when you get picked up from school. The only thing that I would know, I did call Casey Cox during the 127 yard sale to address this to see if we could get somebody directing traffic at the triangle. Because across 127 you have the open area and everything for parking. Somebody was put at the entrance of the school to let the traffic turn in, but that really didn't help because it's not getting to turn in, it's trying to get to where you could even get over to turn in. I guess the only thing that I've thought of is maybe if we could, I don't know if a traffic light would work better there at the triangle where the split goes 68 town and then straight. Or maybe having another officer there and communicating with Officer Kimmer at the other end where the 68 exit is. Other than that, maybe putting a turning lane in down 127. Just so far down to where it's just designated for the school traffic to get into the school.
I wonder what the logistics on that would be. That would be a county commission.
No, that would be a state issue. Yeah, because it's a state highway.
Mr. England,
That's really the only thing I've been able to think of, without having, two things that conflict each other, but it's been last year, towards the end of the year, it was a little more hectic. Kindergarten was not an issue at all. This year it has been a consistent issue every single morning.
is it dangerous? Do you think it's dangerous?
Oh, absolutely.
Sounds like what we kind of dealt with. Wasn't that Brown? Was it Brown kind of issue too? A couple years ago.
I think that was probably South
Was it
School.
South?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
South, yeah, I remember there was an issue.
I know we've had issues at North,
Yes, we did.
but
But I know parents that try to get to work and they detour through the state park to go through that way and come out on Lantana just to avoid the traffic because it's so bad.
I know, I'll just tell you the truth. If it's time for school to take up or for it to be out, I avoid that area and I go through the state park. That's just the way it is. And that is ridiculous. And this came up back years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And Robbie knows that it did. And the State Department, it's state highways. I mean, what can we found out we couldn't do anything, but law enforcement has been trying to help them. And like she said, Casey Cox, he's been talked to, and
I mean,
he's trying to
he did
help.
set somebody out there for the 127 because it was 10 times worse, of course, during the 127 sale, but I mean, it's consistent every single morning.
I mean, that road's supposed to have been made a super highway anyway, like they've put out on Lantana Road. 127 was supposed to be done that way, and they've just put it off, the State Department has, and put it off, and it's got worse and worse.
Ms. Boston?
When we had this issue at Pleasant Hill, and the flow of traffic, it was backing up on the road. What we did, or what we suggested at that time, was BOE went down and for a couple of days and just evaluated exactly what was going on. I don't know if we can add to his already busy schedule, but he came back with they actually worked out a plan that did help Pleasant Hill, where the traffic flowed better. If there's something we can do about adding another entrance or adding a road or whatever, that's something we can look at. Adding a turning lane on 127, state won't let us do that.
And even the other entrance thing in mind, I just don't know where you would, because you have your pre-K. Your pre-K is the first one that goes behind the school. And then we just have the one in and one out.
Well, and I'm not sure, but could we possibly send Bo to evaluate?
Yeah, I believe we can do that.
And see if there's any suggestions, yes.
And maybe he can talk with Sheriff Cox also. I know that everybody's short-handed, so I don't know that we would have an extra
Right.
officer. But with it being the triangle, we definitely need, because they can't watch 127, 68, and, the other end of,
Does the SRO on 68?
usually on
Are they on
68.
68?
Yeah. Roy Kimmer, he is our officer there. He does stand on the 68 side to stop the traffic coming from town on 127 and 68 for the school traffic to get out. And then when he stops us, of course, all 68 traffic's going.
Okay.
Which is hard for everybody to turn out from 127 coming into town.
If we could evaluate that, that would be helpful.
I'm open to anything. Like I said, it's just
We will.
kids getting tardies for having to sit on the side of the road
Well.
for 20 minutes.
Yeah, Dr. Maxwell will get with Bo, and we'll work on this.
One more. The tardies that these kids are getting because of traffic, is this going against them?
It's marked as a tardy. Ryder has had there's been several mornings I wanted to walk in, due to work and meetings I haven't been able to. This past week though, me and several parents, there was probably 6, 7, 8 of us, Brian, that walked in with our kids to let them know that we don't know, just the traffic was so backed up and we let them know, and they said they would let the people inside know. Ryder has had 5 tardies this year.
Wow.
Because of traffic?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think we've gone over our time limit on this one, but thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And we will be getting on that. We'll get somebody looking at that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brian Houston is next.
I'm just going to stand here. Amanda pretty much covered everything. I'm Brian Houston I live out in the line area, and I have 3 children that attend Homestead. In the mornings, the traffic has been backed up to the church at times. A turning lane would be a good idea, and like you said, that's a state issue that we probably can't do. But that doesn't help all the people trying to go to work every day. They can't even get out on 127 from 127. And the problem starts with the officer letting all the traffic out from school and the 68 side, and there's a constant flow of traffic always going down 68 to 127. The 127 traffic has no chance to ever pull out. There's a lot of semis and dump trucks, and it gets way backed up. And you can take the shoulder. There's about an 8-foot little narrow strip that you can take the shoulder if you don't want your kids to be late. But I've left the house. I'm 10 minutes from school. I made it here in 15 minutes, just driving normal. But you can leave the house at 20 after,
and be late for school at 7:45. If you don't take the shoulder of the road, and you're taking a chance on running off in the ditch, because it's very narrow. There's like probably 8 to 10 feet at the most. But I think you could have another SRO officer at the 12768. He would have to radio down to the other SRO officer, and then they would be able to let so much of 127 traffic off. That's a solution. Maybe a traffic light on 127-68 that could be turned in at school time. And I also thought this wouldn't help, like the 127 traffic trying to get to work, but Homestead has a lot of room to expand a parking lot to let more people in. But in the morning, that's not really a problem. In the afternoons, it can be, because it can get back out on the 127. Then they put up signs now where you can't park on the shoulders of the road. They're issuing tickets now.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, the 127 traffic picking up their children, they have to go down to the church and turn around and come back in the other side because it's backed out to the road. It's just a major traffic problem.
Okay. We will definitely get some people out there looking at that and see what solutions we can come up with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the acknowledgement of elected officials. I see Miss Sue York. Thank you for being here.
I'd like to say I'm glad to be back. I missed coming.
Yeah, before COVID, you was here almost every month.
I like to know what's going on because, you do come to us to ask for money.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to encourage the board members, if they are interested, or parents, either one. We're doing our redistricting right now, and we're having a meeting down at the new election office at 5 o'clock. If you want interested in coming, because there could be some changes, and some of those changes go that way. It could affect the school board, so be sure and come and listen.
On what day?
That's Monday at 5 o'clock, right?
At 5 o'clock.
At the new election offices.
Right.
Okay.
On Main
One
Street?
towards flea market.
No, it's.
Oh, they moved.
Yes, they moved.
See, you go away on vacation and everything changes.
All right. Next item on the agenda is the school board reports. Mr. Safety has the TLN report.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gave, there's not much to talk about. The Tennessee legislature has had some special sessions, and rather than take up time talking about that, I gave everybody the National Tennessean News article that explains pretty much what's going on. We do have some special events taking place next month. In the middle of the month, we are supposed to go to the Tennessee School Board Association's annual convention and leadership conference. And as a result of that, during that leadership conference, at the end of it, there is a session in which our representatives to the Tennessee School Board Association is supposed to vote on 13 different proposals, 13 resolutions. These resolutions were sent to us, I believe, this week via mail. It was a 145-page document, but only 19 pages. Pages 107 or 102 through 119 contain the resolutions that we're going to vote on. So I'm briefly going to, and I do this sincerely, I'm going to briefly just tell you what some of the resolutions are, provided that I can find my cheat sheet with my notes. And if I can't, my presentation will be a little bit longer. I can't find them. So, okay, so let me go start with some of the ones that I felt were kind of important.
I'm sorry, Mr. Safety. I'll be right back.
Okay, I knew I would bore you to death. All right. So let's talk about, I'm going to skip Resolution 1 because it is simply a resolution to thank the current Tennessee School Board Association chairman. So, but we get to Resolution number 2 and 3, and these have to do with Resolution number 2 has to do with funding of the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, the TANF funds. Now, apparently, these funds are supposed to be used to help needy families end dependence on the government and prevent and reduce incidences out of wedlock pregnancies and encourage two-family or two-parent families. Okay? So that's a lot of money. The federal government each year gives the state $191 million, and we have a backlog of unspent funds of $798 million. Okay? I don't know why there's that backlog or that reserve, but in any case, the resolution asks the Tennessee School Board Association and the convention members to ask the General Assembly to allow the school systems to use the extra money to help support counselors and social services in the school. And the caveat to this is it might entail recurring expenses. So the legislature is going to have to really figure out whether or not they can afford to give school systems money from the federal government, and I suppose there's matching funds as well, Tennessee matching funds, for recurring expenses. Okay, so that, and I have no opinion on that. It doesn't sound, we need money for social services, but whether or not we should use those funds for recurring expenses with the understanding that perhaps that money wouldn't be there, then we're stuck with paying money that we really have no financial support for. There are a couple of other issues, and I want to talk about resolution number 2. It supports, resolutions 3, 4, 5, and 13. All of those resolutions, as you read through them, pertain to testing and assessment. Okay? Resolutions 3 and 4 request more flexibility in allowing formative benchmarks to be used in both student and teacher evaluations. Now, we know what formative evaluations are. Those formative evaluations simply mean that there are benchmarks that are taken by the teacher in the classroom and in the school system on a regular basis during the school year to measure how well the student is progressing. Right? And then there's the summative tests like the TCAP, the ACTs, and other kinds of exams that are given at the end of the year that are called summative because they indicate the achievement of the student for the entire year. What 3, 4, 5, and 13 do in some fashion or another, ask the state to allow both in teacher evaluations as well as student evaluations to allow the formative benchmark assessments to be used to evaluate students. One of the resolutions, Resolution 13, simply says that, the ACT test is given as a summative evaluation, but what we really need to be doing is understanding that the ACT test and the SAT test are primarily geared for college-bound students, and there's a significant portion of our student body that's not going to go to college. And this resolution says give the school districts the flexibility of having students take alternative tests other than the ACT as a summative evaluation of their progress. Now, the reason, of course, is their progress on the ACT test and the ACT test and TCAP test are used as part of the evaluation of the school system. So we can be penalized financially if students don't meet the state goals for those tests. Finally, there's one in particular that I am fond of, and that is to give teachers incentives. you know, we have, and I know that the Tennessee Teachers Association might not support this, but I think incentives are important to provide both incentives for what work well done, as well as incentives for getting their teaching degrees in specialized areas like mathematics and science. So those incentives, we'll have the opportunity to vote on that. And finally, it made a special point of saying not only do we want incentives for teachers like that, but also, my gosh, pay for the praxis exam. Why have students pay for the praxis exam or teachers pay for that when that would be a nice incentive? Although a small incentive, it would be part of this whole incentive deal. And I agree. Year-round schools often comes up. So this year, we have a resolution to support year-round schools. The normal school day is 180 days. School year is 180 days. But with a year-round school, it might increase the number of days from 20 to 30 days per year. Okay? There's no funding for that. If the school system decides to go to year-round school, then there's no supportive money if they decide to increase the number of days. So this resolution requests that the General Assembly consider, one, providing extra money for school systems that want to go to year-long school, and two, to assist the schools through the Tennessee Department of Education in setting out programs on how to do that. So there are other issues in there are other resolutions, but I spent my 9 minutes. I promised everybody I would not talk more than 9 minutes, and I would thank the board again for giving me this opportunity to present those issues.
Thank you, Mr. Safety. And since we're talking about the convention and the resolutions, we need to select our delegates for the convention. Do we have any volunteers?
I did last year.
Mr. Brock, Ms. Boston?
I did last year. If someone else does.
And I've done it many, many times. So
And you're so
somebody
good at
that
it.
hasn't
Ms.
done
Hale,
it.
will you do it?
I've done it a number of times.
Okay.
What about Mr. King? How many do we have, 4 or 5?
We can have 4 with one alternate, right? So how about we just assign Mr. King?
I'll be an
Well,
alternate.
the thing about it is and I don't mind assigning Mr. King, but Robbie, would you be so kind? You're so familiar with this. And when we get in there and we start discussing, you can fill us in on what we're doing.
Thank you, Teresa. With your request, I will.
Okay. Maybe Mr. King could be alternate.
We got Mr. Safety, Mr. Brock, Ms. Boston, Ms. Hale. Okay, and then we'll put Mr. King as an alternate. Because I don't even know if he's going or not, but
Yes, sir.
you don't show up, you get assigned. Okay, all right. Thank you again, Mr. Safety.
It's bathroom time.
Yeah, well, I understand. We drank way too much water before the meeting.
We're dropping like flies.
Yeah. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is board members' report for training. Anybody gone to any training lately? Nope, hearing none, we'll move on. Next is the legal report. Mr. Patton, do you want to go ahead, or would you like to wait until our absentee attendees come back? It doesn't matter, it's up to you.
I'll just say this, I don't have much of a legal report for you this month.
Okay,
I've
go
been
ahead.
involved in a couple of different matters, engaged with the administration concerning what I would refer to as risk management issues for the board. There's been a contract that I've done quite a bit of work on over the last month that the contract committee will see on November 3rd, and I'm sure we'll have some discussions about that. I've dealt with some matters from the Freedom from Religion folks this month, and You may hear about that in the future, but there's certainly no new litigation that's been produced or that I see on the horizon. So I think we're in good shape.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
What about our property? Have you heard anything on the Jewel? No, the property out at Baker's.
Favors. I have not heard anything else in that regard.
Nothing's been
Ms.
said?
Boston.
Okay.
Nothing's been reported to me.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Dr. Maxwell, do we still have anybody working on?
Yes. Actually, I believe, Ms. Casey, can you help me with what we conferred about?
Sure. We have been working with the county finance office, and it should be advertised very soon. We've gotten the documentation together that we will be accepting bids. The board will be entertaining sealed bids for that property. So if anything comes in, usually that will have a deadline on it, and we would just hold any sealed bids we get until that deadline, and then the board would have the opportunity to open those and entertain them if they so chose.
Okay. What about the property over on Foxfire, the Oakley Drive property?
We're still researching
Okay.
that one to see
Okay.
exactly.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Ms. Boston?
You had just a real estate agent that wanted to list it.
Yes, he called, or he didn't call me, he emailed me and is very interested because he lives in that area. And he's just wanting to list it, and I told him we would check and see, I'd check and see what can be done. And Ms. Harris is just, she's getting the information, and then I'll get back with him and let him know what's going on.
What is required, Casey, if you don't mind my asking, what is required in order for us to list it?
I'll really just have to check into it. When we have listed, I'm trying to remember the Baker's property, I believe we had to put an ad in, we had to advertise to see who would be interested in advertising that property for us and listing it for us.
Invitation to bid.
An
wasn't it?
invitation
Yeah,
to
or
bid,
something
and that
along
ran
those
for
lines.
so long, and no one bid.
No.
I have a question. I would think that that is a professional service, in which case the school board would have the authority just to assign somebody.
It's been long enough, I'll research that. I know there was a reason we had to do it that way last time, so I'll research it.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Patton,
Yes, ma'am.
what are you thinking?
Well, I was just thinking about that very thing. That's an interesting point from Mr. Safdie, honestly, and that my reaction was, let me do a quick search here.
Well, what is an RFQ?
Yeah,
Did the realtors have to provide us with an RFQ?
maybe that's what it was in the past. I'm
That's what
not sure.
That's what we asked for that, and we gave them a packet, and it got a little bit complex. But the lot at Foxfire is not, it's not as valuable as Baker's Crossroads, obviously. Is there some way, I mean, if we've got someone willing to advertise it and whatever, what can we do?
Well, I'll be happy to look into that.
Would you be so kind?
Absolutely, 100%.
Thank you, sir.
So with looking towards the potential of just selecting someone based upon professional qualifications and listing it with that person?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
What do we do with Baker Crossroads? We're advertising what?
That, I believe we're advertising just as an out-and-out sale, that the board has it for sale.
We're selling. We're not
Yeah,
going through
that's-
a realtor.
That's what we did last time, and we asked for sealed bids, and we only had one bid, and it was extremely low, and we denied it.
No. Okay.
And that's how I remember it anyway. Okay. All right, next item on the agenda is the committees. Everybody should have a list in front of you that we passed out, the different committees for 2021, 2022, and we have to have a vote on the committees. Yes, Ms. Boston?
Before we vote on the particular committees, I would like to withdraw my name from the ESSER committee.
Okay.
So that would,
Well,
that would be one
well,
off.
I was going to ask you if you still wanted to do that.
I do.
Okay, and, but in my research, we don't actually have to vote on the committee assignments. According to state law and board policy, chairman sets appoints the committees, the people to the committees. But we have to approve all of the different committees that we have. We have to do that every year. And that's a policy we need to look at, Mr. Brock. I've been meaning to get with you on that because I think we need to do some tweaking on that policy. And I'll get with you about that later. But we do have to vote on the actual committees that we are going to have during the year. Yes, Ms. Hamby?
I just have a question.
Yes.
When did we form the ESSER committee?
Just now, because if memory serves me correctly, at a budget committee, it was either Ms. Boston or Ms. Cargie. One of them suggested that we establish an ESSER committee, and the budget committee all said that they thought that would be a good idea. So I thought we'd go ahead and do that, and then we can go from here forward. And those names that are on that list, I asked each one if they would be willing to serve, but Ms. Boston has said that she would like to have her name taken off.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will do that.
Thank you. One more thing.
Yes.
Is I would like for you as chairman to consider adding Miss Anita Hale to the budget committee. She attends every meeting, and she is so eager, and she has been so loyal and interested in the budget that I think she would be a very good addition to the budget committee.
And we have had 4 on the budget committee before, so.
I'd be happy to come off the budget.
Man, guys, I just got everything said.
We're going to mix it up.
Well, let's do this. Let's just keep the committees as they are, and let's add Miss Anita Hale to the budget committee. I don't have a problem with that.
Thank you very much.
I've got to come off of hers.
We need just a general motion to approve all the committees.
All the committees, yes.
I'll second that.
That was my motion.
Okay. Mr. Safdie made the motion, and Ms. Carty seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion.
Oh, sorry. I do that every time. I try to rush, okay? All right, we've got a motion and a second. Do we hear any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right. Those will be our committees, and you see the list of the committee members, and all we're going to do is add Miss Anita Hale to the budget, and we're going to take Miss Boston off of ESSER. Okay, and everything else stays the same. Thank goodness. Okay. Next item is the director's report. Dr. Maxwell.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Inman. The first item on my report tonight is the 2021 Local Education Agency Compliance Report. This is an annual report that is submitted in actually October for us because the deadline for submission is November 30th, and seeing as our next meeting is December 2nd, it comes before you tonight. This says that we are in compliance with federal and state education laws and State Board of Education rules. And so I do need, it does need to be voted on by the board.
Move to approve.
Ms. Carty made the motion. Mr. Brock beat you by just a second. Ms. Hale.
We need to get the time clocks out.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, discussion.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, discussion.
We're voting that we are in compliance. Are we in compliance?
Yes, ma'am, we are in compliance.
Okay. I just wanted somebody to say we are in
I started to say, we better be.
That's what I need to hear.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The next item that you have in front of you also comes to us in the fall of each year. We have a really great working relationship with the Agricultural Extension Office, and they provide for us their programming events for the entire year. Some of those events are to be determined or to be announced, but again, this does come before the board each year in the fall to ask your approval for our students to participate in.
Move to approve.
Good. I got Ms. Carty with the motion and Ms. Hale with the second. All right, any discussion?
I agree with Dr. Maxwell that this is a great program. When I first moved up here 30 some odd years ago and found out we had 4-H, I thought, this is awesome. So, and the children get a lot out of the 4-H. They enjoy it.
Yes, they do. Thank you, Ms. Hale. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
The next item that does require a vote also, this is a longitudinal voluntary pre-K study. This is a study that we are asking permission to provide to some of our 10th and 11th graders who were in the very first pre-K classes here in Cumberland County. This is a longitudinal study that Vanderbilt University has been conducting over several years, and we do need board permission for our students, the ones that did attend pre-K, to participate in this study.
What are they looking for? What are the kind of things they're asking?
They did include actually the questions. The purpose of it, because it is longitudinal, is to hopefully this study will show the benefits of having a pre-K program, probably asking them, you know, social, emotional, as well as academic, and maybe what their goals are. But this is something that hopefully will be research that will be hopefully a landmark or a hallmark study that other states will look to for supporting pre-K.
Good, thank you.
Can you explain parental role in this survey?
It's my understanding, Mr. Safdie, that this is for the students. I looked earlier, I'm going to have to look back because I thought I saw a parental, and I may have missed that. I will have to.
Let's assume. Let's make an assumption.
Okay.
If there is not a parental participation authorization sheet, does that pose a problem with our community in giving a survey to the kids?
I'm looking at, I may be able to answer that, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it and it's talking about that there's still 700 students active in the sample indicating blah, blah, blah. The students sample and their parents in May, so parents are involved in it to some extent.
I missed that.
And it would be voluntary also.
It's very small writing.
Is this something that they fill out at school, or do they take home? Because, I mean, if we're talking about 11th, 12th graders, is that what we're talking about?
10th and 11th graders,
10th and
yes.
11th graders?
Yes.
If it goes home with them, parents are probably never going to see it. Or do they fill them out, do they complete them in the classroom?
I don't know. My supervisors, do you all remember when they sent this, if it was going to be a take-home or if it was, I was thinking it was going to be a 10 to 15 minute in class, but
Well, if they participate in class, then you're sure to get results. But then the concern that I
They'll
have
find
is,
the right ones. They'll target.
this is a major study, and shouldn't we have parental permission to participate in it?
Will at least make the parents aware.
It looks like they signed up originally when they entered pre-K, the parents entered into the study. So from what I'm reading. So it would be targeted to those families, to those parents, and to those students. So it could, I mean, they don't talk, that I've seen, they don't talk about the methodology of the survey that I saw, but it may just be something that they do via email or via, some kind of electronic means, because they were already enrolled in this study.
So at the beginning.
Yeah, online survey, yeah.
So at the beginning, it does say from the state database, we request all student and teacher level data associated with students identified as part of the initial Tennessee voluntary pre-K study and subsequent follow-up studies for the school years 2021, 21-22, and so forth. And this does come from the state of Tennessee, from the Department of Education.
Do we know if it's done in the classroom, or do we send it home, or they do it online?
I believe Ms. Carty said it will be done online, what she just read.
So in the classroom, because they all have Chromebooks?
I don't think so. I think they're talking about that they want the information validated, that where they can reach them, is kind of how I'm reading it, interpreting it. Dr. Maxwell?
We can bring this back in December and find out the answers to your questions.
When does it have to be approved?
I was winter, spring of 2022. So I think we have time to find your answers and come back and report to the full board.
And it's not that I'm real concerned either way, but if it involves parents, I think we need a way to notify them that, hey, look, your child is taking the survey, unless you have, just in case you have someone that would have an objection.
We can find the answers to all of your questions.
I'll make a motion, we table this until next month.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will bring this back up on December the 2nd. And everybody, please remember, we don't have a board meeting in November. We won't meet again until December the 2nd.
Is that our meeting, December 2nd?
Yes.
Yep.
Is that it? Okay, good, thank you.
I think that's what.
It is. Yes, it is.
I'm happy
It
with
is.
that day, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item, that we have is our October Esther report. There isn't many items to report this month. I'm pleased to say that Ms. Burnaby, our learning loss coordinator, the state has released the training modules for our Tennessee All-Core tutors. And she has gone through all of those modules to get an understanding of how she is going to roll those trainings out to the people that we recruit to tutor. And that goes to the next point. She will be, first of all, with Tennessee All-Core as well, she is collaborating with other districts to find out how they are recruiting tutors, the way they are organizing their schedule before and after school. So there's a really good collaboration going on there. And also a huge shout out to her for her efforts. And if there is anyone in the audience or anyone listening or anyone that reads this report that would like to tutor students to help with learning loss, you are welcome to call the office here. The phone number is 484-6135, and ask to speak with Ms. Darcy Burnaby or leave a message and she will get back with you. She will be rolling out in the next few weeks her recruitment strategy for that, and we are hoping to have some really great responses from people willing to assist our learners. So that's something there, and that will be exciting. We are still looking at a late January to early February kickoff for the Tennessee All-Core tutoring. For ESSER 2.0 implementation, it is in progress. The Budget Committee met a couple of weeks ago. We are pleased to say that the interventionists that we've hired, they are working with students. And the construction projects are in process. We are in the process of writing RFQs, and there are still a few interventionist positions available. If we have any retired teachers, especially high school retired teachers, we have a couple of interventionist positions available. And We have a couple of positions still available at the elementary schools for elementary teachers. The last item on the Esther report is the Esther 3.0. It is still in the review process at the state level, and I have nothing to report regarding that. However, I do have one additional item for Esther 3.0. In an effort for full transparency, as I have striven to do so with all of you, an Esther 3.0 complaint was filed with the Federal Programs Ombudsman for the state of Tennessee. The complaint was filed by Ms. Teresa Boston as a stakeholder and as a board member. I do not have additional information at this time to provide the board, but I will do so when I have more information to share.
Dr. Maxwell? When you get more information on ESSER 3.0 for any way, shape, or form, would you please let me know so we can get the ESSER committee together and we can talk about and see kind of where it may need to fund out?
Sure.
Thank you.
I have nothing else to report on the ESSER. We have our annual planning calendar. It is absolutely, I can't believe how quickly the months pass by. You will see that several tasks for October have been initiated, and we will be filling in several of the tasks as the month goes along, and especially in October, and then in November we will do many of those things. TSBA Leadership Conference as one of those items that you all will complete. The next thing is my FYI, where we have different things attached, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
No questions? We'll move on. All right, the next item on the agenda is the school board committees, policy committee. Mr. Brock.
Thank you, sir. For your consideration, we have 3 policies to consider for first reading. They are policies 4.212, policy 5.303, and policy 5.701. Essentially, very little change on these. It's just updating who we report to, but very little substance there. Okay, an opportunity to look through that.
Okay. These coming out of committee, we don't need a second on that, so is there any discussion?
On policy 5.303, the personnel and professional leave, and we're adding all of that about the D and the E of personal leave is requested for days scheduled for professional development or in-service training according to a school calendar adopted by the board prior to commencement. Why are we adding these?
Anita, that has generally been whether it was an official policy or not, it was an official practice.
Okay.
So that recommendation came from the state just to make it clear, and where everyone from administration to teachers know that parent conferences are very, very important, and a teacher should make every effort to be there. However, it does give an administrator, a principal, the authority to excuse them and make other arrangements.
Okay, so it does give them the authority to excuse, because I know that personally I myself have had to use, come at a different time when I taught because of circumstances happening, family situations, this type of thing.
There are 1,000,001 ugly things that could happen.
I just don't want it.
This just makes it official that a principal does have the authority to allow that teacher to make other arrangements.
Okay.
So it's not really excusing the teacher from the parent-teacher conferences, but it gives them the opportunity to schedule another one on their own time and notify all the parents and everything.
Okay, Mr. Brock, thank you for clearing that up.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right. And we're going to vote on all 3 of the policies. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, carries.
For second reading, and I will not go through there are 7 of those. Those were presented last month, and we continue to support them.
Okay, and once again, this coming out of committee does not need a second. Is there any discussion? We've already voted on these once. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes as well. Okay, next item on the agenda is Athletic Committee. Mr. Brock, you got anything to report to us?
Nothing to report at this time.
Okay. Mr. King, of course, is not here for the budget. So I was going to ask if either one of y'all, Ms. Boston or Ms. Cargy, has anything to say.
Yeah, I do. It came out at budget that, I think it was policy that tossed it to us. I'm not sure. Some other committee tossed it to us about the certified staff getting compensated for working games.
It was the Athletic Committee.
Athletic committee, sorry about that. And so it was our discussion kind of came around to the fact that we don't believe that we actually have the authority as budget committee to do that without it going to salary first. The salary committee really needs to take a look at that. And I believe Ms. Harris and Ms. Bray were going to go ahead and do some research on that, and then they were going to toss that to the salary committee. And it wasn't that we're trying to pass it off. We just didn't believe that we had the authority without looking at some numbers.
Similar to what the Athletic Committee did.
Exactly. We're just pushing a little further.
As an explanation, because we have no authority on budget.
It's a great idea.
Well,
We need to do it. It's just how do we do it?
And for those of you that are wondering what we're talking about, the teachers have come up with an idea about paying teachers for after school duty, such as working ball games and things of that nature. And whenever I was a teacher at CCHS, we actually did that for a couple of years. We opened it up for anybody that wanted to participate, and we'd have about 7 or 8 people that was going to do ball game duty, and it was the same group every week, so that it was consistent, and we paid for it out of the gate money. And but like I said, we only did it for a couple of years, and it's a great idea. But we have to come up, if we're going to do this countywide, we have to come up with some money, and so that's where we're at. We're going to be looking at it to see if we can afford it. But the teachers definitely deserve it.
Yes.
Believe me. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the federal programs budget for 21-22. Who's going to talk to us about that? Well,
I can, I don't want to take the place of any.
well, it came out of budget, so
It came out of budget.
we don't have to have a second.
We don't.
So-
The one thing about it is that the ESSER 2 fund, the ESSER 1 and the ESSER 2 were separated out of the federal programs. I think we went on to talk about ESSER 1 and ESSER 2, and there were no issues with approving the playground. There was one question about allowing, on the playground equipment, if you did not want to build the pavilion, and we didn't get an answer to this yet, could you add additional playground equipment? And that has not been answered yet that I'm aware of. Also on the ESSER 2, if we approve it tonight, the federal funding on the ESSER 2 grant, the HVAC is on hold until we see what we are going to come up with for a professional to do the evaluation.
I thought we decided that y'all decided to go ahead with the HVAC that was already in progress.
Now,
But we were going to try to find somebody to give us their expert opinion on what we needed to go with.
Everything that was urgent,
Right.
they were going to move forward with, my understanding.
Well,
My understanding was everything that was already allocated. And then extra funds is what we were going to look for possible.
And that may have been
grants.
the one that I voted no on?
Yes.
And everybody
That's
else
correct.
voted yes?
Yes.
If you are correct.
So, I mean, that's 1.49 million?
But I remember it coming out of committee for use the ESSER 2 money for the HVAC, because if we don't get started with it now, we're going to get so much further behind. But we were looking at holding up on the ESSER 3.
Yes.
Till we could find somebody that was an expert that could give us an idea of exactly what we needed.
How much of the ESSER 3 money is designated for HVAC?
I don't have that in front of me, Ms. Boston.
Casey, do you remember?
I don't have it either, just, I've kind of put it on the back burner while we're waiting for the state approval and then.
Do we have, we've got 1.2 going in ESSER 2, is that correct? I think it's 1.2 or I think it's 1.2.
I think 1.4.
1.4. Okay, so we're moving ahead with that, even before we get the evaluation done.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's the way it came out of committee.
It probably did.
Because
I think I voted no.
Because if I remember correctly, what the discussion was that if we wait on that right now, that we would be putting ourselves in a hole on getting everything done, and that the HVAC people that's in the system, they've got some urgent needs, and we talked about that. I remember
We did talk about that. And it's free money, so if we waste it, it's not our money to waste.
No, that's a waste though.
Well, I will assure you that I will take every pain to ensure that we don't waste any cent.
Yeah.
Because 1 cent to me is just as important as $1 million. And I appreciate this board and your desire to be fiscally responsible, because I think that's what we all need to do. And we will absolutely take the input that we get from our maintenance personnel. Ms. Harris has reached out to many people. I've been included in all of the emails and conversations, and we are diligently searching to get people to help us with the efficiency, to find people to come in to help us evaluate for the efficiency as you desire.
Have we found anybody?
No, we've put feelers out, we've met with a private company, we've got feelers out in process with TVA, BEC, and then the Tennessee Department of Education has a specific branch that focuses on energy efficient schools, so we've reached out to them too, and everybody's just busy. So since the budget meeting, we really put that in high gear, and we're still in data collection.
Since it came out of committee, it requires no second.
Yep. So, any further discussion? All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Building and Grounds Committee. Mr. Saff, do you have anything to report?
Nothing to report this month, sir.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Hamby, the Safety Committee, anything to report?
Yes, we had a meeting on October 18th, and what that meeting was about was more about the bullying issues and about the rumors and things that have been going on in our school systems. And we just wanted to make sure that parents know that we are continuing to work to put an end to as much as you can possibly put an end to bullying. But we are working on some different programs and plans.
And I'd just like to comment that, when I graduated from high school, I weighed 92 pounds. And when I graduated from the 8th grade, I was probably in the 50 pounds or less. And I was bullied constantly, not only because I was the smallest kid around, but because I spoke like a Yankee. That was awfully bad that time. So anything that you do or you recommend, you'll have my support.
Thank you for that.
And I was at the Safety Committee, and I want to say that Ms. Hamby and the Safety Committee did an awesome job, and they're working hard trying to come up with some solutions for bullying and any other issues that come up with safety. And thank you for that.
I appreciate that.
All right, next item is the contract committee. Ms. Boston, you got anything to report?
We have a meeting scheduled November the 3rd at 4:30. We only have, I think we have 2 items on the agenda. One is the contract, the aviation contract that I think Earl's been working on for quite some time. They have fine-tuned it, and that is to be approved or reviewed by the contract committee on Wednesday.
Can we get copies of that before the meeting so that I can take a look at it?
Diane will post it.
Yeah, it'll be on the
November 3rd?
website.
November 3rd at 4:30.
Well, she'll.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Sapp.
I'd like to address the safety committee. I don't, Rebecca, I'm sorry, I should have brought this up before, but does the safety committee, will it take up any issues with this road business at the homestead?
I was thinking about that while we were discussing that. I'm gonna see what I can find out, because I'm at a loss of what we can do.
Would you, if you decide a date, would you tell the buildings and ground committees that we could join you?
Yes, I will.
Right?
Yes, I will. And I will put some research in and see what can be done, and see if we need to have a meeting and discuss.
If you and Dr. Maxwell and Bo can get together and.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, we.
Absolutely. You know, this was the first that I was made aware of this, so absolutely.
We definitely need to come up with some solutions for that situation.
When we were looking at Pleasant Hill, which committee did it go through? It may have went through Building and Grounds.
It went through Buildings and Grounds.
I think so,
And Officer Howard had,
he helped.
He was helping, and so was the SRO and Mr. Magnus.
I think Mr. Safety's recommendation is a good one.
Joint,
So
yes,
I
yes.
think it needs to be a joint session with the Building and Grounds, and we can get some things done quickly that way. All right. Next item is the Chief Financial Officer's report. Ms. Harris, you're up.
Thank you. So we'll start with our September financials. In September, we received about $4.6 million in revenue for a year-to-date total of just over $10 million against our budget of $56.4. So any questions on our revenues? Okay. Looking then at expenditures, in September, we spent about $4.8 million for a year-to-date total of $11.7 million against our budget of $59.8 million. Any questions on expenditures? Okay. I do not have the sales tax report yet. As soon as I do, I will email that out to the board. And then we have some budget amendments. I'll be happy to go through them one by one or answer any questions you may have.
Well, let's open it up for any questions. Does anybody got any questions on any of these? Does anybody need anything explained or anything by Ms. Harris? All right, if not, then we'll consider a motion to approve all 4.
Move to approve.
All right. Got
Second.
a motion by Ms. Cargy and second by Ms. Hale. Any discussion? All right. Since this involves money, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Safety?
Yes.
Ms. Parris?
Yes.
Ms. Hale?
Yes.
Mr. Brock?
Yes.
Ms. Hamby?
Yes.
Ms. Boston?
Yes.
Ms. Cargy?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. Okay,
Thank you very much.
that was quick and easy. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Ms. Boston.
Second.
Boston with the motion and Ms. Hamby with the second. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say that I'm happy to see the children getting to go out and do things, and it try to be more of a normal school year. I know that we still have concerns about sickness and everything out there, but I think that people are watching, what to do and everything. I'm just happy to see that they're getting back on a regular basis on going to school and having fun at it, not only just learning.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is old business.
I have something.
It was in the consent agenda. That's all right. Mr. Safety, old business.
Thank you, Mr. Inman. This goes back to my TLN report, and this pertains to resolution number 6. And I thought that this board would have a special interest in this resolution because of its content. It says that, first of all, the name of it is Resolution in Support of Clarifying in State Law the Authority of School District Budgets. Okay? It says that the state law gives a local board of education the authority to create and adopt a budget, but is silent at times over issues that occur after the budget is adopted. These issues could be something simple as budget processes, approval of a budget, the bidding that takes place in a budget, payment for services afterwards. So therefore, this resolution encourages the General Assembly to clarify the school district's role or the board's role in budgeting and after budgeting activities. Whether they do that or not, it's kind of a global kind of issue, very general, and it'll take the General Assembly a lot of time to figure out just what this resolution really means. But Teresa, you might be interested in.
I'm very.
Yes. Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Safety. Any other old business? All right. Questions from the media?
I guess it's me. No.
Okay.
To adjourn?
All right. Got a motion to adjourn. Ms. Carty and Ms. Boston with the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hang around. Stay a while.